When the proverbial S hits the F, things are going to go up in value that might not be worth very much right now. And so in this video, we're going to talk about the most valuable preps in SHTF. Because honestly, it's probably a good idea to have some of these set aside, not just for value purposes, but just for preparedness purposes in general. Now, before we get started, I want to mention that Midway USA is the biggest supporter of the channel. And thanks to them, I can get out here, give you information like this, and a great place to get SHTF preps. So a big thanks to Midway USA. Now, the first item on this list is going to be luxury freeze-dried foods. They're going to skyrocket in value if we find ourselves in a full-blown SHTF event. And why is that? Well, in general, they're going to be foods that are harder to access during an emergency, but you'll still have them because they last basically forever. Sometimes 10 years, sometimes 25. Regardless, these freeze-dried luxury items right here, like this ribeye or New York strip, are going to be very sought after because people will crave those types of foods, but who's going to have access to a ribeye if the grocery store is not open? But you might have it, which could be extremely valuable in the sense of bartering. Not to mention, companies like Peak Refuel have very good meals that are freeze-dried, like beef stroganoff, for example, which people won't be able to easily access either. And now you have ribeye steak with beef stroganoff on the side, and maybe you can trade that for something a little bit more important for you. So, luxury freeze-dried foods, especially ones from good brands like Peak Refuel or Mountain House or some of those other brands that are out there, is a great thing to have on hand just for preparedness purposes in general, but also will probably be very valuable during SHTF. Now, the next thing on this list is going to be prescription medications. Some people need their prescription medications in a life or death sense. And so without them, they're going to be in a very bad situation, which means that if you have the medications required, they're going to be very valuable. Not to mention things like antibiotics are extremely important during an emergency because infections take people out very quickly, and without antibiotics, there's not much they can do about it. So companies like Jace Medical offer a way to get prescription medications delivered right to your front door, which is excellent. And of course, it allows you to stock up a little bit on those medications now while times are good. Prescription medications are already hard to get right now. So you know they're going to be scarce during an SHTF event and likely more valuable, which can hopefully help you out if you ever need to barter or trade or obviously use them. So that's why prescription medications are also on this list. Now, speaking of value regarding preparedness, I do want to mention today's video sponsor. The sponsor of this video is Goldco. I've recently partnered with Goldco as a trusted asset within the precious metals industry because here in the preparedness community, we recognize precious metals as a way to store wealth. Just like we look at freeze-dried food as a way to store energy and ammunition as a way to store security, precious metals can help protect your wealth through challenging times. And whether or not you want precious metals delivered right to your front door, or if you're interested in precious metals-backed IRAs, Goldco has you covered. And right now, if you use my link, trygoldco.com/magicprepper, they can provide you with a free 36-page wealth protection kit, which gives you a lot of information, including how you can get into precious metals, tax and penalty free. And right now, if you act quickly and you use my link, you can actually get up to 10% back in bonus silver from Goldco if you sign up for a qualified program. So make sure you check out Goldco and use them for your precious metals asset in order to protect your wealth for whatever comes in the future. Speaking of precious metals, another prep that will skyrocket in value and will be extremely valuable during full-blown SHTF is going to be ammunition. Now, ammunition, of course, is relatively scarce in the sense of no one can ever have enough, but during a long-term emergency situation, the people who don't have much now will likely want to have more. And ammunition is always going to be important to have on hand for self-defense purposes, for hunting, and for any other utilitarian concept you can think of related to firearms. And of course, if you don't have that ammunition, you're going to want it, which means demand will go up, supply will go down, and everybody's going to wish they had more. So ammunition will very much likely skyrocket in value during SHTF. Now, bartering ammunition is a whole nother conversation. There's a lot of risks there in the sense of giving people access to weaponry during an emergency that you may or may not trust. So that's something you have to consider and put into your plans now. But if you have a community, or at least you know the people around you, and ammunition is something you have on hand and they need, maybe that barter situation becomes a little less of a security risk and actually just helps you better your position based on the current situation. So ammunition, I expect to go up in value during full-blown SHTF. And in general, when it comes to media or fiction and books and everything else related to SHTF scenarios, ammunition comes up quite a bit as a very valuable thing to have. Now, past that, we're going to talk about fuel. Fuel is always going to be extremely valuable in any emergency. We see how quickly gas stations empty out right before a hurricane strikes. We see people fighting over gas when they're having to leave a war-torn country or whatever else it might be that they're evacuating for, and we know fuel has a limited shelf life. Gasoline doesn't last very long even if you use stabilizers. So there's a lot of reasons why fuel will be coveted. People want to be able to be mobile with their vehicles. They might need to use certain tools or equipment that require fuel, and it's going to dwindle as refineries are no longer online. So I expect fuel to be valuable very much in the same way that was demonstrated by Mad Max, but at the same time, you can only store fuel in so many different ways. So of course, obviously you have to be smart about it, and it all depends on what you need access to. If you need gasoline for your equipment, then you need to store it. You need to figure out ways you can stabilize it and make it last as long as possible. If you need diesel, if you need propane, whatever it is, any type of fuel is going to have value. Not to mention what else it provides, right? It not only gets you mobile or allows you to drive your vehicle, it doesn't necessarily only get you up and running when it comes to your lawnmower or your power equipment, but it could also be what you use for cooking or boiling water, which is going to be important during emergencies. So that's another reason why it becomes extremely valuable, because people will need it even if they don't currently use fuel at all. And I mean that when it comes to city dwellers who don't have a vehicle, who ride public transportation, who never ever go to the gas station, they're still going to need a way to use energy. So fuel is going to go up in value during SHTF. I don't know how much it's going to be worth, but I do know it's going to be precious. Now, the last thing on this list that I think is going to be very sought after, but also not that hard to get a lot of now while things are good, is going to be personal hygiene products. Now, personal hygiene isn't at everyone's top of mind when it comes to SHTF, because we all think about the bigger stuff and the more interesting stuff or the important stuff, right? But we don't necessarily think about how I'm going to take a bath or how I'm going to keep myself clean or hygienic or healthy during a long-term scenario. And personal hygiene products are going to become more and more scarce while people are going to realize they need them more and more to maintain a level of health that actually helps them survive that situation. So things like bar soap or even feminine hygiene products are going to become much more valuable. And so in a bartering and trade scenario, you might be coming up quite big if you just buy some extra bars of soap now, or if you have some extra feminine hygiene products on hand now. And of course, I know there's lots of ways to work around these things, especially when it comes to natural alternatives and ways you can make some of these items yourself, but not everybody's going to either have the skills to do that, want to do that, or they're just going to want some of those old conveniences as a way to bring back some normalcy. So I think personal hygiene products are going to be very valuable in an SHTF scenario. And in a barter or trade type environment, they're not even going to be very risky for you either. Not like when it comes to something like ammunition, where someone could use that against you in the future, or something like fuel, which they could use to power a vehicle to use against you, or use it as a way to start a fire, or whatever else it might be. Personal hygiene products, very low risk, very inexpensive right now, but could be extremely valuable during that whole SHTF scenario. So this is something I just wanted to put out there as an idea and a concept for you to consider. I think that these are some of the most valuable preps during an SHTF scenario. Let me know in the comments below what you would consider to be valuable preps as well. What do you think will go up in value based on a full-blown SHTF scenario? And yes, we're talking grid down, everything has shut off and nothing works properly anymore at all. There is no more infrastructure. Full-blown SHTF. We're talking apocalypse here, baby, and I want to know your thoughts on it. So anything else you need from me at all, you can go to magicprepper.com. And besides that, that's going to be it for Magic Prepper.